Arthaus. All right, people are starting to come in. Get some
Technology is wild. Like I can see through Twitter as well as seeing you on the screen through the Zoom.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And the fact we're having a call live streamed. I'm live streaming our call to millions of other people, and then that call will be hosted online for millions of other people to go and watch. It's ridiculous.
I dig it.
And I grew up with it, so I take everything for granted. But when you do just like step back and you just break down each mechanism, it is magic. It is magic.
I recently was trying to explain this to my dad. Like I grew up where we'd be outside. If the sun was out, we were out, and the streetlights come on, you get home.
Yeah.
So I grew up in that era appreciating the outdoors, but so I'm 33 now.
Mhm.
I also grew up understanding how to navigate a smartphone and how to use tech and do things like this. So it's like the best of both worlds.
Right. Yeah, I was on my parents made me go outside, which was good. I was definitely a outside kid, skateboarding and whatnot. But yeah, it is weird that my whole life has just been around technology. I've never not had technology, and I don't think the full effects of that are even close to being seen yet. Of people that have not experienced a world without technology.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like my dad, I'm trying to explain to him what I do for work. He's like, well, how do you travel to meet these guys? I'm like, well, I don't have to go see them all. We all can see each other face to face on a video call. He's like, what? I'm like, never mind. Like, I'm not even going to try to get into this.
Yeah, just trust me, Dad. It works. Trust me.
Like, think about it. You grab this device, you tap it in a certain order, and like food shows up at your door. Like, it's just the craziest thing.
Yeah, man. Or you tap some buttons on your computer, and then people will just give you thousands of dollars for
Yeah,
things.
then money shows up, like real money. You're like, what the hell?
Like you can literally run a whole brand, not see your product once in real life, and become a millionaire. Like it's probably not optimal. You probably want to grab and test it, but like you could. There's definitely a way.
Trying to explain that though to somebody who didn't live it or doesn't, live that type of lifestyle or in that, arena, I guess they're just like, it just doesn't click.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of old like brick and mortar guys near me who just don't really have a huge online presence yet, and they're like, "What?
How? Show me the way."
How? And then they're like, since the brick and mortar margins are, getting worse and worse every year, it's like if they don't work for a month, like their whole livelihood collapses. Or if like you're working online and you kind of have low overhead and you can't work for a month because of Corona or something, or your income gets shut down, then you're better off.
Yep.
All right, you ready to get into this?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right, so this is Arthaus, and today we have Hunter Drew. Hunter Drew is the co-founder, right?
Co-founder of the Fraternity.
Co-founder, okay. Co-founder of Fraternity of Excellence and the Family Alpha blog that he also does with the great Craig James. And he is here to talk about something that I think is very important, but it's kind of philosophical, and it kind of, it's not one of those super actionable topics that you can go write a listicle about. It's like it's a thing that you're gonna just have to internalize, if you're thinking about becoming a father. And that's dealing with your own demons before you bring children into the world. So Hunter, can you bring some insight on your sort of your upbringing? And because we know it was kind of a tumultuous one, and how you were able to kind of reassert yourself as a benevolent, reassert your domain as a benevolent king, as a benevolent father, instead of going down the path of a tyrant, of an abuser, of a hater, of a demon, in a sense.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate you having me on to have this discussion, because it's honestly not one I have too often. I'm usually focused on applicable actions that can be immediately, inserted into your life. This is more kind of the theory behind it. And I appreciate, you bringing it from that angle, because it's interesting. And, using myself as the example. When I was 6, my mother committed suicide. My father was in the Navy. He lived with a strong hand. Like, there was discipline in the house. There was an expectation. You had to meet it, or there were physical consequences. So I was also raised, while he was deployed, being a single father, we had to be raised by somebody unless we were dropped in the system. So my grandmother took us in. So I was raised by a very hard woman. She grew up during the Great Depression. She kind of like what we're seeing now, that whole recession hitting and people living a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we lived. That's how we were brought up. And again, strict discipline. I was afraid of that woman. She was a beast. So I grew up in that. And my whole time growing up, I wouldn't say I was abused. It's not like I was beaten every day,
Right.
but it was corporal punishment. That's how that worked. The belt, spanking, things like that. And even as a kid, I'm like, I don't ever want to do that to my kids. Like, I don't think that's the right way. And, here's like child me having these thoughts. I'm like, I'm not going to question my dad because that'd make it worse, but I just don't think this is right.
Yeah.
And I think there's something inherently male about that. Is men, I'd say much more than women. If we see like a big dog beating up a little dog, we root for that little dog. We're like, go up, stand up, be strong, stay, don't get your ass kicked because you're smaller. Like, have that underdog mentality to where you're going to fight till you win.
Right.
And I saw that growing up my whole life. So if there were bullies that were picking on other kids, maybe the nerds, maybe the kid one that comes to mind is he was always NASCAR, and like we're in Rhode Island, so it's not like NASCAR belt. So they make fun of him. And I fought the kid trying to pick on this kid because I knew it was wrong. Like, you don't bully people. So all the fights I got into were fighting the freaking bullies, and I'd still get in trouble. And I'm like, I'm doing the right thing, man. Like, this is what right looks like.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, though, that when you're brought up in that environment, it doesn't seep into you. It doesn't become a part of you. So there are a lot of people who, when they're brought up with corporal punishment, or they're brought up, maybe their parents are mentally abusive, well, they take on those habits and they're like, well, that's how I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, they find themselves at 25 years old. They're like, oh, I made it. And because I made it out all right, and I'm a tough guy, I'm going to pass it on to the next one, not realizing the damage and all the preventable pain they felt on the way
Survivorship bias.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I'm good. Well, could you? I'm not. You're good now. Maybe you fixed yourself now, but that doesn't mean you need to go beat your kid because he spilled some milk on accident. There's a jump there that I think a lot of people, they don't like to see that they had to make.
Right. You frozen? No, you're back. They they survived the torment and the abuse and the corporal punishment, but just because they survived does not mean that's just because they survived and you turned out fine doesn't mean that's the right way to go. It just means that's the right path.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things too. You see a lot of husbands, and we're talking about demons that you had to face. Sometimes being a nice guy is a problem that you have. And these children who are brought up, they're so afraid of making their parents upset that they develop these quirks to where I got to make them happy. I always have to make them happy. And my friend, Anthony Migliorano, he's one who brought this to my attention, that by yelling at your kids and being domineering to your kids, they push that onto their spouse. And now these men who are like, I don't know why I'm always nice to these girls, because you're afraid to upset them, because you're afraid to upset your parents. You've been conditioned to not express your true nature because you're afraid of trouble following it.
Right. Well, I can tell you my upbringing, I was very lax with my parents. Like, they had these strict rules, but I didn't really go out of my way to get into trouble. But I wasn't, at the flip side, I wasn't also pushed to take the risk. Right. It was like, if you don't want to take the risk, that's fine. You're good anyway. And there wasn't the the polarity you need, where you need to be pushed to take the risk, but you also need to be, know that you'll be loved, if you fail, or you'll love, you won't get yelled at if you suffer. And I got one end of that, but not the other end. And I think that stunted my growth as a teenager. And I had to really rekindle that drive to take risks and, take life with my own hands.
And I think that is a perfect example of what I'm saying is, look, you're doing well for yourself. Like, the content you're creating, you're writing, I dig what it is you're doing. It's pretty cool. But could it have gone even further if you had learned this instead of, late teens, early 20s? Had you learned this at 5, 9, 12 years old, how to properly fail? Like, I'm not saying that you're not doing well. And I'm not saying these guys, they haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
But with our kids, we could set them up to go on such a higher trajectory than ourselves. Like, my son will be a better man than I'd even know is possible. And I don't say that as some sort of like a martyr, like, oh, I'm doing this for him. He just has such a stronger foundation than I ever had coming up,
Right.
that if he blows it up, that's on him. He'll have all the tools to succeed.
Yeah. I think the big thing with fatherhood is it's a very tired and played out trope, and everyone says it, but you want to make your kids want to be more successful than you were. And that's not just in terms of giving them wealth, or like you always say, presents, not presents, right? It's not in terms of giving them wealth or the big house or the cushy college, or the using your connections to get them the job. It's about instilling, the internal qualities that maybe you didn't have, and you had to learn the hard way. And then so you give it to them and you instill it to them when they're young. So when they become your age, they're automatically a way more developed human than you
It's the intangibles that people like to skip over.
are.
They may think, oh, financially, you're making more money than me. That's the goal. Well, I'm not saying that's the goal. I'm saying I want my son and daughter to get their ass kicked, to get fired, and to get kicked out of whatever situation they're in, and still be able to stand up and say, I got this.
Yeah.
I want a mentality like that. Ones that say, hey, I've lost 30 times, but I'm going to succeed on my 31st try. I'm going to keep on going, and whatever it is they're pursuing. People that struggle, people that have that internal stress, they don't have a life experience or any sense of life satisfaction. That doesn't come from money. That's a mindset, and that's built, I believe, through parents. I think parents can foster that. And I'm living proof that you can do it yourself, because I didn't have that. I built this when I joined the military, is when my brain kind of snapped. It figured itself out. The dots connected. That's what it took for me, was literally getting shipped off to some random place with a bunch of other dudes and yelled at. I'm like, oh, I get it. I want my kids to have that from the beginning.
Right. So you think the military was like your big catalyst in realizing that, okay, I need to make a change in my life. This is how I need to start. This is the path I need to go down to start viewing how I, run my life.
I think, and not even I think, the answer to that question is yes. But to elaborate,
Mm-hmm.
two things happened. One, I was sent to a totally foreign place. So up until that point, I told myself I was an idiot. I was this dumb guy. I was unmotivated. I was always going to lose. I had this very negative self-image of myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, that first day we're all lined up. I'm like, none of these guys know me. This is my opportunity to start over.
Mm-hmm.
So I put myself in a mindset where I'm like, I'm a confident individual. I'm a man who stands his ground and I never give up. I never quit. I'm always going to see it through. That's who I am. And then that's who I portrayed. And then all of a sudden that was my default. And then if you combine that with, going to boot camp or doing anything like that, it's a big life moment. That became my rite of passage, to where I was like, now I'm a man. Because I never really knew. I joined when I was 19 and I still didn't know. Am I an adult yet? Like, where is my ceremony? We don't have that in,
Right.
at least in my family, we don't have that.
We
So it's graduating boot camp. I was like, I'm a man now. And those two things combined changed my life.
I think it's very interesting what you said there about having to go to this completely foreign land shifted your mindset, because I think that part of the thing with abuse, corporal punishment, whatever you want to call it, like the flaws of your parents, is heavily due to the environment. And even if inside, like, okay, I'm going to start working through this, if you're still in that environment and you're still subjected to, the stressors that your parents, your family, your community brings, that are bringing you down, are making you, that are sustaining your lack of confidence or sustaining your lack of individuation, then the best thing to do is just to leave, is to go completely somewhere else, start from absolute zero. And then you can rebuild yourself. You have the space to kind of reclaim your mind and reclaim what you need to do.
And there are two parts to that as well. So I completely agree. Like I said, that's literally what I did. So
Yeah.
there is that element. There's a guy in FOE who we were talking. He's like, look, I need to do something. He's like, I'm in a loop right now, and I need to go out into the world and assert that I am a man. I am an adult. I've got this. He went to South America for a few weeks, just out of the blue. South America, traveled international, totally sketchy situations. And he came out of it. And now just the way he carries himself, he's like, no, I proved I do have it in me. I can do this. I'm a man. So that's one side of it.
Mm-hmm.
The other, though, and people are going to think, well, I can't leave my situation. I can't just, I'm a father now. I'm married. I can't just up and go. All right, let's look at this, though. We're living during the Corona quarantine. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be some monumental move across the country moment. right now you've got a global thing going on in the world. Why not say, Corona, this is the time, this is the major event that I'm going to say I forever changed. I stopped spanking my kids. I stopped trying to make everybody around me happy. I stopped putting my needs last. All of these things which you were conditioned to do. Why not use this opportunity? Which is how often does this happen in our lifetime? Now,
No.
we literally stopped our
once
dude. This
never.
this is such a golden opportunity for the people who can't move away to reinvent themselves now.
Mm-hmm.
Make this the time you stuck to your workout program, the time that you stopped, placing everybody ahead of yourself and said, I'm going to invest in me. I'm going to buy the books, or I'm going to buy the course, or I'm going to go get this product, like whatever the fuck they want to do.
Yeah.
They can actually make themselves a man of value.
And you mentioned right there, fraternity of excellence, right? And that's something you've been building out for the past, 3 years now?
Yeah, it's been entering 2018, January 1st.
How many guys are inside that now?
I think we're at over 170.
170. And, just generally, how have you noticed, sorts of the things that we've been talking about? Have you noticed guys come in with kind of the issues that we were talking about, kind of like they had maybe a troubled childhood and they might think they're putting it out on their kids, and you see them go through a change in their behavior?
It's almost 100%. Everything that set them on the path towards where they weren't content with who they were was due to something in their youth. Oh, and I would like damn near 99.9%. It was like, hey, my dad wasn't around to set an example, so I didn't know what to do. Or my dad was around, but he was so overbearing that I was afraid to ever make him upset. So I was trying to be just like dad. A lot of fathers go in and they're working on a better relationship with their children, husbands with their wives. They're all trying to fix something. And it's crazy to see the growth, the tangible, no shit proof of things improving. I mean, it's hard to judge, is your relationship with your child better, until you start seeing the little things here and there. Oh, they come to you, they want to open up to you. They lean on you. They say good things about you, when you're not listening. Little things like that, you start to see it.
And that reminds me of a quote that I've talked to my German friend in my DMs every once in a while, and he told me that everything you hate about yourself is a fragment of what you don't like about your parents, or something along those lines. And I think that's very true, because when I get mad at when I realize one of my flaws, when I get mad at my parents doing something, even, I realize I have that exact same problem. I'm getting mad at me right now. When they're, when they're doing X, I realize I'm doing X too. And I have no reason to be mad at them. I just need to better myself.
I like that. I mean, that's pretty solid. I've never heard that before. It reminds me of something I once said, where a lot of writers, they're writing to figure themselves out. Mm-hmm. So the problems they're talking about, they might be helping other people, but they're trying to fix their minds at the same time.
Oh, writing is the best form of healing, I think, because maybe not the best. I mean, there's probably some, if you're a multi-billionaire, you could probably do some insane 1 week mind fuck retreat, drug MK Ultra reorganization that can make you a completely different person. But in terms of return on investment, if you're just a normal guy, getting a pen and paper and just writing down your thoughts, writing down your issues, making plans, unbelievable. It's unbelievable what it can do.
I mean, obviously, I agree.
Yeah, I can see by your blog, you definitely agree. Do you in terms of the FOE, what are some things that you guys do? Do you do obviously you guys probably do group activities and stuff that can kind of foster the shared feelings that to become better men, become better fathers, right? What are some things that you guys do?
So inside FOE, there's obviously a chat element to it, but that only does so much. And guess what? There's Reddit, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, and yet men are still suffering. So chat isn't the answer. Mm-hmm. We have weekly video calls like this, and this is one step closer to what's needed. Mm-hmm. So almost every day of the week, somebody's leading a session on some topic, and you could have 10 guys on, you could have 35 guys on, depending on the timing. Mm-hmm. And that's one element closer to forging a connection with the man. I know you better now than I did, 20 minutes ago, because I get to see you. I get to hear the tone of your voice, your mannerisms. 100%. We get to exchange 100%. Ideas. So the men are forming bonds that way across the globe. And that leads to the highest element, which is why FOE works so well. is before Corona, every week men were meeting up in their global sections, grabbing dinner, grabbing drinks. We had a Spartan race scheduled, and then twice a year we do a full group meetup. So last, I think it was June or July, or maybe February, I don't even know, February, we went to Florida, and there were 25 of us, and we just spent the entire week, like 3 days, 4 days together, just camping and having a good time and just doing man shit. And it was the first time for many where they finally went on a vacation without their wife and kids. You know, they did something for themselves for a weekend, and it was just like from day 1 to day 4, you could just feel the energy, and they brought that home, and now they're all pumped up, you know, carrying that on until the next meetup.
That's exactly what we need. And you know, using the global platform to group people locally, I think that's the most powerful thing you can do, because you don't want to stay online. You want to use online to connect, but you want to bring things in person at the end of the day.
Well, it makes it real. You know, it's true accountability. You shake that man's hand, you look him in the eye, say, I'm an FOE brother, you are too. Here's the standard, you know, pursuing excellence in all areas of our life. You kind of consummate your friendship with that handshake. That's when it's real.
Excellence in all areas of life. I think that's a great thing to strive towards, you know, because a lot of us are just content. The problem with America right now is that you can get by, and you can technically thrive due to all the advancements of comfort, and be extremely average in everything. You know?
I would say you just hit the majority of people.
Yeah, you can do nothing and get a lot. You know, you can do everything in such a mundane way, with no thought, with no passion, and still get a lot of return for that. And you know, the striving for excellence is, you know, that's what breaks you into the next paradigm, next field.
You had said something earlier about how, you know, we try to improve a little bit in the next, like we carry the images of our parents, we carry their flaws and their features. I think with each level, you know, we have to get rid of a little more of the flaws and push it forward. You know,
Right.
so I guarantee I changed a lot. I made it much better from how my father raised me.
Right.
My son, while I think I'm doing the best for him, will do even better. And so my grandson will have a better father than my son had. And each, you know, we break the cycle. Like you had said earlier in the title, like you break the cycle that you're stuck in of saying, you know, redundancy without progress is just insane. You're doing the same thing your parents did, and you're surprised that you're feeling just as shitty as your parents. Well, you did the same thing, and your kids are going to be just as shitty as you. You know, somebody at some point has to change things.
It's a never-ending cycle towards absolute perfection. That's what we want. We want our kids to turn out perfect and be the exact ideal of man or woman. And we have to do our very best job to sustain that. Hunter, we have to wrap up the call here. What's one thing you would tell someone? Say, how about this? Usually I'd say, like, what's one thing you tell a father? But let me switch it up slightly. What's one thing you would tell somebody who is about to be a father? Like, wife's pregnant, and they're like, holy shit, I'm about to be a father. Like, am I cut out for this? What's going to happen? Is this blah, blah, blah? What's one thing you tell them?
Go read thefamilyalpha.com. That's a pretty solid start. But more importantly, understand that your children, your wife, you know, they're going to follow your example, not your advice. That's the strongest piece of advice I can give, is they're going to follow what you do. So if you stay calm and collected, your woman will stay calm and collected. If you show that reading books is good and working out is good, and, you know, telling the truth is good and being a genuine good human being is a good thing, they will model that. But if you're fat and you're lazy and you're weak and you're telling them to go read, go lift, and go be a good person, they're not going to do it. They're going to follow what you do, not what you say.
No, and all that's going to do, if you're fat and you tell them to go work out, it's just going to make you resent them. It's going to have them resent you that much more.
It just doesn't work. So foster the relationship by living a good life.
Hunter, it was great to have you on. Thank you for stopping by on Arthaus. Tomorrow we got a Use XP coming on. I think we're going to be talking about like conspiracies or some whack stuff. So that'll be fun. Same time, 12 p.m. PST, and we will see you then. Later, guys.